Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the D-Shift podcast. And we are going to talk about something that is a big issue pre-divorce, during divorce, post-divorce, and basically I'm going to say from the time you get your first job until the day that you get so incredibly wealthy you don't have to worry about it anymore, and that is money. So I have an expert today on the podcast who is somebody that I've interacted with in groups and masterminds, and she is just a fantastic resource. I want to introduce you to Wendy Lyon. Wendy is a speaker, author, and she has been listed in the international who's who of female executives. And Wendy really focuses on getting people out of debt in about half the amount of time that they expect, and without having to make any dramatic changes in their budget or their lifestyle. And I think that's a pretty fantastic idea. So Wendy, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Marty. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, and it's fantastic to have you here because I think debt is something that most people in, I'm going to say the world, but I know you work specifically with people in the US, right? That most people are experiencing. As a matter of fact, the level of debt is the highest it's ever been if you look at kind of the statistics. And so many of us are running paycheck to paycheck that if there is any kind of glitch in our lives, all of a sudden it's like, holy cow, what do I do, right? Because there's not necessarily enough money. So Wendy, what got you into this area of finance and helping people reduce their debt?
Well, I really love to help people with their retirement and make sure that the retirement is secure and intact and accounts for inflation and taxes and all of those increases. I'll just say, just on the side, that there's a lot of financial professionals that say, oh, just aim for about 70 to 80% of what your annual income in retirement because you'll be in a lower tax bracket. Well, who wants to live on 70 to 80% of their income? I want 100% of my income, if not more, because inflation and taxes and the high cost of living and all that has to be taken into account, right? So I love to do that for people. But what I found is that with Americans, 1.3 trillion in credit card debt, 15.7 trillion in household debt, and you're just trying to get through the month.
Yeah.
You're not thinking 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, right? You just are like, let me just get the bills paid. So I thought, let me help people get out of debt so you have that extra money that instead of paying on the debt, now you can create some real wealth. Now we have something to work with and we can get your future secure and you can have that retirement that you've always dreamed of, but you never thought you could have. And one thing I love about this, and you touched on it, is you don't have to change your budget or lifestyle. So you don't have to live on, rice and beans and, chicken noodle soup and, macaroni and cheese for the next 5 years. And I never recommend anything that I don't have a personal, wow experience with. So I ran our numbers through it and I was very, very conservative with our income because I am the poster child for unexpected life events. I've been widowed. I've had to raise 2 children on my own. I've had those lean times. So I didn't want a what if everything stays the same kind of scenario. I wanted, what if COVID happens again, or, that kind of thing. So we had refied our home back in 2021 to 2.75%. And we had money sitting in a money market account at 4.5%. Well, my accounting brain is thinking, why would I pay down 2.75% in debt with money making 4.5%? So to my surprise, with this system, and it's like a financial GPS system, we would pay our home off in 10 and a half years rather than 27. We'd save $81,000 in mortgage interest. And in those other 17 years that we're not paying on our debt, we would build over $2.2 million in wealth. So our retirement was already good, but that's a substantial increase that we weren't expecting simply by following this financial GPS system. And I love it because just like, if you're going to go somewhere, I don't go to a gas station and buy a paper map. I don't even know if they're even available anymore, but you put it in your phone, right? And your phone has this 30,000 foot view and it says, oh, there's a traffic jam over here. We're going to go around that. There's a speed trap over here. We'll navigate around that. Maybe there's road construction. And you're going to trust that navigation to get you to your destination the fastest and most efficient way possible, right?
Yeah.
This does the same thing, only this is taking like a 30-year view and it's navigating you. What if you get laid off? What if you get a bonus? What if you get a better job? All of those things that come into our everyday lives, it is going to give you instant results and say, okay, let's navigate around that. Let's take this. And it gives you the exact month and year that you're going to be debt free. So talk about hope for
Yeah.
the future,
Yeah.
right? Now I know exactly when this is going to be over. I know exactly when I can start building wealth. So I love it. And you can do it with as little as $50 to $100 a month left over in discretionary income, which these days that's a, a dinner out or, a couple pizzas.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have to sacrifice a lot to just come up with that little bit of extra money to get you completely out of debt and have that financial freedom that so many people yearn for.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that that is something, I hear people now saying, well, you're never going to be out of debt. I've actually was listening to a podcast the other day and they had an expert on there and I can't remember who it was, but it was a financial expert who basically said, the average consumer in the United States will be in debt from the time they start making money until the time that they die, because there's just no way to not be in debt. And I'm thinking, how can that be true? Like, it can be true if you're spending way above your income level, that kind of stuff. But I'm interested in how does that reflect like something in life, the system that you use? How do you plan for something like a divorce, and how do you prioritize your financial goals throughout that? I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, Wendy, but here's what I see. I see my clients, women who are going to their attorney, who are
Mhm.
putting a retainer for their attorney of $20,000 or $30,000 on a credit card. That's only their retainer. This number is going
Right.
to incrementally increase. Yes, they've got the gold card and they can do that, and bless them for that, but that's what, 24, 25, 30% interest they're paying on that credit card debt. And so I can see how this could quickly build up. How do you talk to people about prioritizing kind of their financial goals and how to go about what to pay off and what to do and how to choose how to spend money?
Well, first of all, number one is you create a budget and you stick to it. You live within your means. That is paramount. One thing you mentioned, what about a divorcee and she has to put this huge retainer on a credit card? One thing that I love about this financial GPS system is that you know instantly the ramifications of every single financial decision you're going to make. So what if you want to go on vacation and you put that on a credit card? Oh, $10,000 is really going to be 35,000 once you pay the interest at 29.99% or whatever. So if this woman were going through a divorce, yes, if I put this on my credit card, now what is my debt-free date? Now, how does that affect my future? So you'll know that instantly. I really am upset with somebody saying you're never going to get out of debt because you know, what I try to do is give people hope and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel and it's not an oncoming train, that this is possible. I never want to tell somebody there's no hope. There's always hope. I have come, my husband and I remarried in 2000, and my husband and I lost our incomes the same day, not once, but twice. So I always tell people if I could plan for our retirement coming back from nothing, imagine what we could do together if you have something. So for the divorced woman, obviously now you're going to take a course, a very different course on your own without that husband, without that income. And you want to assemble your priorities and get your legal team together, get your professional together, get your financial professional together, and definitely please change the beneficiaries on your life insurance policies, because I've spoken to many women, and when I say, did you change the beneficiary? Like, if you die, is your husband still going to get that death benefit? They're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that. So that's paramount to get all of those ducks in a row. But this system will take you by the hand, and each month it tells you what to pay, when to pay, and how much to pay. It's so simple to use. And of course, I stay with you and hold your hand until you're ready to walk on your own.
Right, right. And I like the
Exactly.
idea that you can run different scenarios. Like, okay, if I put this money for the attorney on my credit card, this is what it's going to look like. If I go to the bank and take out a loan, this is what it's going to look like. If I borrow it from my sister or my aunt, wow, that's probably the best option, right? Because hopefully they don't charge interest.
Yes, yes, yes.
But
And I would
I
oh,
think
go
that's
ahead.
powerful to be able to run the scenarios. It's like having your own financial analyst right there at your fingertips.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, to know the ramifications, instead of going, well, I wonder what will happen if I do this, or what might be the consequence if I make this decision, you can just know instantly. Now, and just off the top, if you could put that on an installment loan, it's going to be reflect better on your credit, because revolving credit never gets paid in
Right.
a way. You know what I mean? If you're always making the minimum payment, and that might be why that person said you'll never get out of debt if you're only making minimum payments.
Right.
We have credit cards, but we pay them off every month because I never want to pay that interest. It's horrible.
Right.
And let me tell you, one time I thought I had paid our credit card, and there was a page where it said, does everything look right? And I got distracted and I saw the print symbol and I just printed it out thinking, oh yes, that bill is paid. Well, one day after the payment should have gone through, they had already locked up the entire credit line, charged me all this stuff and interest fees and late fees and everything else. And thank God I go into our bank account often, because I want to make sure everything's working properly and doing what it's supposed to do. And luckily I called them and they said, oh yes, we know that you pay your bill every month, and so we're going to credit all this back. But I
Right.
was shocked that the very next day, that
Right.
whole, and it's, we have tens of thousands of dollars in a credit line. They cut the whole thing off just like that. So to have like an extra friend to say, hey, it's time to pay that bill,
Right.
or,
Right.
time to transfer that money. It's nice
Yeah.
to have that extra hand with you, if you will, that's going to guide you each and every step of the way, month by month.
Well, and it's interesting when you said that, because I know not endorsing any particular cards, but I have several different cards, but I have an American Express. And I really like American Express because they do break it down. They say, if you make the minimum payment, like this is on your statement, this is how long it's going to take you to pay. And this is how much of interest you're going to pay. And if you pay, the minimum plus 100, this is how long it's going to take you to pay. And this is how much in interest you'll pay. And when you look at those numbers, it is shocking if you just even pay $100 more,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
so I
Like
love that idea.
$6,000 might take you 14 years to pay, or something incredible like that. And it's because the interest rates are so high.
Right.
Some of them are as high as 29.99%, I want to say.
Yeah.
Well, that's a third of every dollar that you pay just going towards interest. And that's just insane.
And
That's
I was
insane.
going to say, a client of mine did a loan from one of these online credit companies, and she saw what she could get. She saw the monthly payment, and I don't know what she thought. I guess she didn't do the math, but the monthly payment looked reasonable, but she didn't realize it was for 84 months. And by the time she paid everything with the fees and the interest and the APR and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it, I think she took out a $35,000 loan, and I think she paid $18,000 in fees, interest, and whatever opening costs and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, that is highway robbery. That shouldn't even be allowed. I thought there was something usury or something. They're not supposed to be able to do those kind of crazy charges.
Right. Well, mortgages are the same way. They're all front end loaded. So you might pay On a 30-year mortgage, it might be 15, 16 years before you start to see your principal come down. I
Right.
know on our mortgage, more than half of what we pay was going towards interest. So this is how the system works. It really eliminates that interest. And that's where you save tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then, like I said, and then put that wealth that you're now creating because you're not paying on that debt, make that work for you. Put it in a money market account earning 4.5%, or I think Boya has a savings account for 5.6 or something. You can just Google what has the best, the highest savings rate, things like that. Do be careful though of whether it's annual percentage rate or if you're going to get that credit monthly. Because just full transparency, I made that mistake and I found a bank that was paying 5.05% on their savings account. So I moved money over there, and a month later, I'm like, well, why did I only get this much interest? Oh, that's annual percentage rate. So if you leave that money in there all year, then you'll get, that. I was like,
Oh, okay.
no, 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 no. So you got to look at the fine print. So, I make all the mistakes so that nobody else has to. I'm happy to admit that. I'll be the guinea pig and I'll let you know because I have an actual story that is called I Learned the Hard Way so you don't have to. So I do, I'm not perfect. I try to do the best that I possibly can, but even I being, in this whole industry, the financial services industry, even I didn't look at the fine print. So
Yeah.
I did stay on top of it though and go, well, why not? Okay, well, bye. I'm going to put my money somewhere else now.
Right. What do
Yeah.
you see? Because I talked to different people that have come on the podcast and are financial planners, advisors, certified divorce financial analysts, and there seems to be this, and not all. So I'm being stereotypical here when I say this, but women seem to have this sort of love-hate relationship with money. Like I'd love to have it, but I don't want to look like I'm making a lot of money. Like I don't know. It's almost like I don't know what to say. Like it's hard for women to articulate their value. And then I think it's hard sometimes for women to understand that, okay, now I've got this lump sum of money. And what do I do with it other than keep it in my bank account so I can say I've got $100,000 in the bank? Because the bank is probably the worst investment vehicle you're ever going to make, right?
Right. Well, unless you can find a really good savings rate. Um, women, I agree with you 100% that we kind of have this love-hate relationship. And I think a lot of it is because the men, typically take care of everything. In fact, the financial services industry is predominantly men. So that's why I came into it. And my primary concern was to help women because we are going to be the recipients of the greatest wealth transfer in US history. We outlived the men. So we, above all, need to know what to do with that money. And there are amazing vehicles out there. I don't sell products. I put people in vehicles that are going to get them to their financial goals. Again, in the most efficient, effective way possible.
Right.
I
Right.
need a drink of water.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
go
Hold
right
on a
ahead. I'm
second.
gonna I'm gonna I'm
Okay.
gonna riff on this anyhow because I do really see that where and if you're still married, this is a good time to maybe sit down with your spouse and talk about, are you really using your money wisely? Like, don't assume that he knows better than you know what to do with the money because it's not something we're trained, we're not taught. And a
Yeah.
lot of people, I know when I grew up, my dad always said, put your money in like, well, I was in Canada, so it was called a different thing, but like a registered retirement savings plan or an
Mhm.
IRS or no,
Mhm.
not IRS, IRA, or, one of those things, or, bonds or something that was very, very stable, extremely low risk. But again, that's not always the best use of your money. Like money markets are doing a lot better. Those EFTs, things like that. There's lots of options out there that maybe your spouse doesn't know anything about either.
That could very well be. There's I do a talk called Five Simple Steps to Financial Success. And the first one is to protect yourself, your life, because if you disappear, all your wealth is going to be consumed to make up for that economic hole that was left behind, right? The second is to create a budget and live within your means. Stick to it, because I don't care if you're making $1 million a year. If you're spending a million, you're still living at poverty level. You might be doing it in a nicer house and a nicer car, but you're still at poverty level. And the third one is to make your money work for you. So there are so many financial options out there that if you are a layperson, you would never even know about them. Who would think to Google, oh, is there an option out there that gives you a 50% signing bonus? Well, there are. There are some right now that are offering 47%, 32%. So if you have 100,000, you can turn it into 150 in a matter of weeks. Like,
Yeah.
would you know to even look for that? I wouldn't. I
Right.
didn't know how much I didn't know until I got into this industry. And what you don't know will hurt you. But
Yeah.
how do you know what you don't know? So if you can't get with me, get with some financial professional that can enlighten you and inform and educate and empower you to make these decisions. So you're making an educated not decision, not just a, oh, well, I hope this works out, or this is all I know decision.
Right, right. And I hear a lot now about people talking about creating passive streams of income through these different
Mhm.
investment vehicles so
Yeah.
that when you do retire, you've got, you're not relying on Social Security, which we all know is not enough to do anything with. So that you're not relying on one source or your 401k plan or your retirement plan, because those can go up and down and up and down. And we all know what happened a few years ago when it all crashed. And then all these people
Oh, yeah.
were pulling money out and they didn't have half the money they thought they were supposed to have in there at that point in time. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
And you know what's very important too is when you're nearing retirement, it's not so much how much money you have. It's when are you going to start taking it? Because the sequence of returns is very important. So say you have two couples and one retires in 2000 when the market was down, I'll make it up 10%. And then the next year it was down 13%. And the next year it was down 23%, something like that. Well, they've already sucked how much money if they're pulling out, say, 60,000 a year. Now their account, they're going to run out of money in like 13, 14 years. It's not going to last them 20 or 30 years that they need in retirement versus a couple that maybe retires in 2004 when the market's up. And
right.
now they have that much more money in their retirement account to draw from. So the sequence of returns is just as important as the annual return. Because if, you're supposed to buy low, sell high.
Right.
Well, if you're in a predicament where you have to withdraw that money, no matter what the market is doing, well, now you're doing the exact opposite. You
Right.
bought high and sold very, very low.
Right.
So there are very simple ways to create other income streams so that will complement the market. So when the market is down, you pull from this income stream and let the market recover. Then you pull from that while this one recovers. So they're very complementary. So you really want to have definitely more than one. And I know you're in Canada, but in America, Social Security is supposed to by 2035, which isn't that far away. I mean, the last 40 years went like that. Okay, the next 10 or 11 are sure going to go by much faster. It's only going to be paying out 83%, 83 or 87% of its total benefit.
Right.
So there's another huge cut
Right.
to the income that you expected to have.
Right.
So that's when I'm working with clients, it's like, okay, what income streams do you have? How much do you need or want in retirement each month? And what is that gap? And what can we do to shore that
Right.
up? So
Right.
that's where I come in. Yeah.
And yeah, I am from Canada, but I am down here in the States. And so I've got really sensitive to this issue as well, that a lot of people going through divorce, of course, you're having, let's just say randomly, it's not really half, but you're having basically all your assets and retirement and everything you've got of value. Well, the older you get, the increased risk that there's going to be short or long-term health conditions that you're going to have to deal with. And I know firsthand what happens when somebody has a major health crisis and there's no insurance in place, because it is devastating. And, whereas people listening in Canada, UK, and other countries don't necessarily have that same concern because they have, the subsidized health systems, which kick in. But down in the States here, boy, that can really wipe out generations of a family, not just the person, because that debt goes on and on and on. It does. They keep coming after you for that.
The average couple in retirement is going to pay between $220,000 and $250,000 in medical expenses. That's up to $250,000 that you weren't counting on.
Yeah.
And that's average. So for some, it could be more, for some, it could be less, but it's very easy to think convalescent home, think memory care, think, I have a client whose husband is in a home right now. It's costing her $7,000 a month.
Right.
I have another client, his mother, before she passed, she was in a home. It was $10,000 a month.
And
so $10,000 a month for 2 years is $240,000.
Yep.
I mean, it adds up very quick.
Yeah.
Very quick.
And that Medicaid doesn't cover that kind of stuff.
Oh gosh, no.
It's very limited.
No.
Wendy, we have covered the whole gamut of all the finances. But even though this last little part was a little bit like gloom and doom, I want you to remember what Wendy said at the very beginning, which was you can take as little as $100 a month and start creating the wealth that you're going to need so that you're not facing these kind of issues that we talked about. And I want to bring that back because that is so positive with the system that you use. So Wendy, what do you think is the most important thing that we've talked about here today?
Well, I think number one, that there is hope. Don't let anybody tell you differently. And the most important thing I can say is start now. Do not procrastinate. Don't put it off. You can, you should, and if you start, you will. But if you don't do anything, don't expect tomorrow to be any different if you haven't done anything differently today. So take that first step and take that initiative and reach out to a financial professional, or I'd be happy to speak with you myself, and let's just see what the future can be. And there's a lot of potential out there.
And you led me right into my next question. How can people reach you if they do want to have that consultation with you?
Okay. Go to thefinanciallion.com/schedule. Again, thefinanciallion.com/schedule. And we have a free financial strategy session. And I promise you will leave educated, informed, empowered, and with a plan, and you'll feel light years better that you did.
Thank you. And thank you for offering that to people. I'm going to really encourage you to reach out. As you can see, Wendy's really easy to talk to, and she's really down to earth. She's not going to give you a bunch of, whoa, what is she talking about? She's going to explain it so you understand, because she's explained stuff to me and I can understand. So if I can do it, you can do it. And Wendy, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me, Marty. Always a pleasure.
Oh, you are welcome. And I'd like to thank everybody for listening in. And don't forget to listen in to the next episode of The D Shift. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.